Trump responds to Kamala Harris's weak CNN interview.
I just saw her, Tulsi, she was sitting behind a desk doing this interview. And I said, Dana Bash, you could make yourself big tonight. All you have to do is be fair. I haven't seen the questions, but they gave out a sample. In fact, she's going to be on later on tonight with a taped. It was a taped. We're doing it live. Why are we doing it live and she's doing it taped? But
that's right. He's real.
But she was sitting behind that desk, this massive desk, and she didn't look like a leader to me, I'll be honest. I don't see her negotiating with President Xi of China.
Not only was the interview pre-recorded, but they've been sitting on this for days. The version they released was about as polished of a turd as they could have polished it. Have you ever noticed how Trump gets interviewed versus Kamala Harris?
Him for a minute.
No, but you start with me.
You're president. And
excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk.
If Kamala is a strong, independent woman, why is she sitting there with Tim Walz, an old, white, cisgendered male? I know the left is going to say it's about togetherness. It's the president and the VP. They're special friends. But it just makes her look weak.
That it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act.
Let's look at this actual inflation chart. You ready for this? Do you remember when Biden said he inherited a high inflation rate at 9%? That's completely false. January 2021, when Biden took office, the inflation rate was at 1.4%. Over the coming months and years, it got as high as 9%. But just as recently as March, it was at 3.5%. So please try to explain this Empire State Building inflation rate.
It basically sums up Kamala Harris's ongoing obsession with word salads and burdening Americans with her bizarre jargon. But what struck me the most is that she needed a babysitter with her. Why on earth was Tim Walz, her vice presidential pick, there?
Yeah.
Did she need an emotional support person? Did she need reassurance? I mean, she is the one who is running for president, not him. Yet he spent most of the interview sat there like a spare part. And bear in mind, this interview was a long time coming. Kamala Harris has refused to do any interviews or press conferences since the Democrat elite punted old Joe Biden in favour of her.
She's pulling a Biden hiding in the basement.
Therefore, there have been zero opportunities to properly scrutinise her and her policies, or lack thereof. She's avoided it. And today she does her first interview, pre-recorded, so not live, and therefore we don't know how much was edited and cut out. She chose a network where most Democrats feel at home, CNN, one of the most liberal media outlets in America, you know, the same one that covered up Joe Biden's cognitive decline for years.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
I was in almost every meeting with the president, and the president was in front of and on top of it all.
He is good in small.
He was in front of and on top of me. Sorry.
Settings, yes. And he's a good small talker, and he puts you at ease if you're in a small group with him.
He's a good small talker. That's what we need in the president of the United States, is a good small talker.
And the journalist, CNN's Dana Bash, who has shown extreme pro-Democrat rhetoric on multiple occasions. But the bizarre thing is, Kamala Harris could not do the interview alone. She had to do it with Tim Walz. And look at the optics of this. They are sitting at a black table like they're about to break bread and have lunch, except, of course, this is actually meant to be a serious interview setup. Yet Kamala looks small and just awkward in the middle. And if you look closely, Tim Walz's collar is not even sitting right. And while Kamala takes most of the questions,
I don't care about his collar.
Walz is left there to look around, and all he can really do is nod his head. At times so violently, I thought he would even pull a muscle. The optics are so off. And it suggests that this woman, who wants to be the president of the United States, is unable to do solo interviews, unable to stand up for herself, and has generally no idea what to do when not staring at an auto cue. And when she does an interview, she has to have a babysitter. She needs someone holding her hand. Now, the strategy of staying silent has worked so far for Kamala Harris. She is slightly ahead of Trump in the latest national polling, 48 to 45.
Well, that's because there's a silent majority, right? We're going to vote for Trump when the time is right. And the left has the never Trumpers, right? The anyone buts. Basically, any hot bag of meat that you put into the Democratic nominee is going to get the vote over Trump because people just have such a bias towards him.
The real test, though, will come on September 10 when she faces off with Donald Trump in a presidential debate.
Can't wait.
With no auto cue and no babysitter.
I was going to break down the Kamala Harris interview, but I can't sit through that thing again. So let's watch some Kamala Harris memes instead. Ooh. Tim Walz spent 24 years in the National Guard. He won awards for sharpshooting and weapons training, but he never saw combat. Now, I know that there's a lot of servicemen out there who didn't serve in a combat capacity, and good for them. Just don't say you did when you didn't. I can go out and shoot a stationary target and get a marksmanship award. That doesn't mean I've been through the hell of war. What a clown.
He even called for termination of the United States Supreme, the supreme land of our nation.
That emotional support, Tim, that might need to be on a sign somewhere.
The United States Supreme, the supreme land of our nation. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. You know, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking.
And this was a CNN town hall back in 2019.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. You know, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of community.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking. I think about this issue through the lens of my baby nieces, who are 1.5 and 3 years old. And when I look at those babies and I think about what the world will be like in 20 years if we don't act, I'm really afraid. And as it relates to those Republicans in Congress, where I've now been for 2.5 years, every one of those members need to look at the babies, the grandbabies in their life, and then look in the mirror and ask themselves, why have they failed to act? I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
So when Kamala was announced as Biden's running mate, she basically adopted his policies. Any clear thing from that, she just said, President Biden will not ban fracking. Flippity flop. Is she black? Is she Indian? Does she want to ban fracking or doesn't she? You never know where you stand with Kamala Harris. One of my favorite things that Kamala Harris said during her interview was that she had helped create 800,000 jobs post-pandemic, when in reality it was just a spike because people were coming back to work to jobs that they already had. Hey, you know how we put everyone on lockdown? When we let them leave their homes again and stopped the police state, we're going to take credit for them going back to their jobs and say, look at the employment rates. Anyway, CNN has been dubbed KNN, the Kamala News Network. What did you think of Kamala's softball interview with Tampon Tim? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to Conservative Vibes, and I'll see you next time. Anti-Kamala Harris merch available now at conservativevibes.com. Everything is made in the USA.